So we do have 10 minutes, but a lot of times people have questions before I even start to talk. So if anyone does, anyone have any questions they want to ask me?
Tell me about your work, like what you do with people in your practice.
Okay, yeah. That's a good question. So, well, you had a session with me. That's mostly I work on the phone, but it's when I start to work with people, I used to describe it as I would see a line from where people are to where they want to be, or more connected into the spirit, and then they start to see what's blocking them from doing it. And there's also part of it that it creates sort of a pulling for them towards this thing. And then I just sort of watch, and I see all sorts of things. Sometimes there's physical things, or I'm best at talking about psychological things. And sometimes I see things I don't even know what to say, to tell you the truth. Like I see, I can't even think of something, but I don't even know. And then I've learned to say, well, I don't know what this means, but this is what I see. I tell the story because I was working with this woman on the phone, and sometimes there's a voice, which I'd like to say is some healing master, but I don't really know. But I've learned that it really is reliable, and it just kept saying, it said ice cream. And it had nothing to do with what I was talking about, and eventually this voice, it starts going, ice cream, say ice cream, just say ice cream, just say ice cream. So I said, I have to say ice cream, and she sort of started laughing and crying at the same time, because she had just had a fight with her boyfriend about ice cream. So, it's kind of a cute little story, but things of all sorts of things happen. The reason I use testimonials rather than trying to explain what I do is it just seems when I've tried to do it, it sounds like so many other things. It's hard to describe. So what did you I mean, you had a session, it's very cool, right?
Oh, it's wonderful. I mean, I had a similar sort of feeling afterwards when I went to Omega up in New York, and I saw John of God.
Well, the spirit comes in and stuff happens.
Did you start with that?
I took some questions. I figured, yes.
That was so kind of you.
Do you have a question, young lady? No?
I know when I speak, my kids love to come.
Oh, really? Wow. I'm surprised my daughter's here. She's here. That's great.
Introducing Laurence Brock. He is a doctor of spiritual science, visiting professor at the University of Bridgeport, certified polarity therapist, and accredited advanced biofeedback therapist. For over 30 years, he's had a successful counseling and healing practice and has taught worldwide to professionals and lay people alike. You can get more information about him at laurencebrock.com. And without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic, and I'm going to sit down and watch this too, because it sounds amazing.
Thank you. Good. You get the mic?
Yeah, it's really
Good. Okay. Hello. So yes, when I was in my early 20s, I had a near-death experience. And I had been living in Colorado at the time, and I came back. My parents lived in Westchester, New York. I came back to visit them and went to a party. What's that?
Oh, now it is.
Okay, I'll talk into it. How's that? Okay. And I did things that no one probably should be doing, which was drinking and driving and other illegal substances, and got into a very bad car accident. I did have the experience of floating away from my body, seeing my body there, and going into the light that people show in movies and people talk about. I didn't really get that much information as far that I was aware of at the time, like some people do, but I did have a feeling, knowing in the deepest way, of this real good, and that everything was good. And it's still, as soon as I think of it, I connect into this really great energy. Then I heard a voice say, "You have to go back, your father wants you to stay." And at the time I knew your father in those terms were not my physical father, but my spiritual father. And so I went back in my body and woke up 3 days later. I did start, after that, I noticed when I touch people, my hands became very warm, and that still happens, and healing took place for them. I also started to meet a lot of people that had near-death experiences. I was just talking to this young lady here, that one of the people I met, his name was Rashad, who was a Sufi sheikh, who was a real character, and I had just started to meet a lot of very interesting people who did really miraculous things. One of the things that happened with Rashad, he was doing this workshop in sacred geometry that was a little above my head, but during one of the breaks, I wanted to be there just because I like to be around him. One of the breaks, he said, "Come into my office." And he didn't have an office there, but it was a little room, and he was just a real character and a comedian, and I didn't know if he was just messing with me or he was going to ask me to go clean the toilet or something, like those little menial tasks he would always ask me to do. He said, "Here, give me your hands." And I gave my hands, and he goes, "There, you got it." And I'd say, "What do you mean I got it?" I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You don't need to know that." And he would say that a lot to me, that I don't need to know that. I've learned over the years that things in the spirit, you don't need to know, because it is our mind trying to make it concrete and confined and defined compared to spiritually, which is unlimited and unknowing in our mind. It is definitely knowing in our heart, but it's a different type of knowing. If anyone has any questions at any time, feel free to ask them. I'll just tell some of the experiences I've had that were these magical, mystical things. Another experience I had with Rashad was he performed a wedding for not my daughter's mother, but my son's mother, who I'm no longer with. It was called a rose ceremony. He said, "Go get 9 roses, closed roses that were not open." So I got them and he said, "Cut the stems off." And part of the, we had he had all the there was a bowl with the closed roses in it, and he put one in my hand and he said, "One stands for this." And then I put it into the woman I was married at the time, and he added another one and said 2 is for this. So back and forth till it was 9, and they were in my hands. I don't remember what the numbers meant, but he said, there was also a bowl of water there. He said, "Drop the roses in the water." I dropped them in, all the roses opened up, the room filled with the smell of rose, and the water had turned to rose water. Just a lot of cool things like that. Definitely, I've learned very interesting things, and that's kind of a fun story, but I've also seen and observed and participated in miraculous healing that is just as magical as the roses opening up. And again, I'll just keep asking if there's any questions.
Can you tell us about a miraculous healing?
Yeah, I can tell you. Let's see. Yes, something that happened. It was a couple of years ago, but this woman came to me. Her friend sort of pushed her to, because she didn't believe in what I do at all. She had an abortion maybe a year before that, and something happened in her reproductive system, and she was getting sicker and sicker. The doctors basically said, "No way you're ever going to have a baby." She figured she'd give it a try with me. I knew as soon as I started working on her that she was going to be able to, but after 3 sessions, the doctor said, "We don't know what happened, but you're way better in getting better." She's since had a baby. She wrote me this email saying, "I don't know what you do, but, so that's a very cool thing." Yes?
Ethereal, you mean angel healings?
Did I say ethereal?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure
That's
if somebody
okay.
said the word or you said the word.
Well, there are all sorts of beings in the spirit. Some of them are angels. There's all sorts of positive ones, there's all sorts of negative ones. So yes, there are times when I'm working on people, it just feels like energy comes in. Sometimes there's things I see that are angels. There are sometimes there's animals that come in, or just different beings that I would say more healing masters of angels. So, yes. But what I have learned, no matter what it is, all the rituals of healing, whether it's traditional or not, are designed, when they work, it gets this thing going in the spirit, and then it starts to work. So my son, some years ago, when he was young, he was into what I do, but then he became not into it, so he's 38. He went to a doctor. I don't even remember what he was taking medication for something, and it wasn't working. And I could see spiritually what was not working for him, why the medication was not working. So something in his consciousness was not allowing it, and I've learned about this. So there's a thing I do, I just put my finger on the person's forehead and can line that up. And it was kind of cool because within, like right away, the medication started to work. What was going on with the heavy? Oh, it's not. Okay. Let's see, some other really cool things. Okay, so I have someone who haven't spoken to me for a long time. I used to have an office in New York City, and she would come there. And she came to me. Again, her friend sort of made her come. She was very depressed for a long time on a lot of medication, had a psychologist, a psychiatrist. And she came to me, and she had basically, there was this guy that she really loved who was not such a good guy. He wasn't really a bad guy. It's not like he hit her or anything like that, but he loved women, and he would always go out with other women, even when they were dating. And all her friends, her psychiatrist, her psychologist saying, you need to get away from this guy. And I could see, and this is kind of a unique thing, because usually if someone comes to me, it is not like they have to be with someone. That's a very unusual thing. But for this woman in this lifetime, she had to be with this guy. And I said to her, you need to stop trying to get away from him. You need to come up with a good plan to get this guy. And she did. And within a couple of weeks, her depression went way down. It took a while for her to really come out of it, but she eventually got the guy. She's married. They live in California now. He doesn't go out with other women anymore, but it's cool when you can see those things, like what's someone's karma, and if they're not living within that, they're just not going to be happy. A lot of times with autistic children, that's happening. Again, some years ago, I had this woman who would come see me. Her son was severely autistic, and he was kind of obsessed with computers. And basically, his parents, his teachers, his doctors, they're all like keeping him away from the computers. And I could see, that's part of his karma. And I said, you need to just train him over it. And he started making this really amazing artwork. He started making this really amazing artwork, and he didn't get all the way healed, but he had certainly some piece of his life from it. When you can see that stuff, it's really cool. I'll keep it to my mouth, okay? Let's see, So, as I mentioned, after my near-death experience, I became very interested in learning about death. And people didn't really talk about near-death experiences in those days, so I was looking in mostly looking in religious books of some sort. So I started studying with this guy, Rashad, who's a Mevlevi Sufi, the Mevlevis follow the teachings of Jalaluddin Rumi. A lot of people know of Rumi because people take poems out of his spiritual teachings, and people think they're love poems to a woman perhaps, but they're really about his relationship with God and his spiritual teaching. But he would talk in terms of dying each day. So even though he wasn't really talking about dying, it's like there is something about dying that you're letting go of the physical body. So in having a near-death experience, a lot of people get to have their body out of the way for a little while as they connect into the spirit. Everyone can do that to one degree or another. and I've since learned meditations and techniques to be able to do that. The other person I studied a lot back in those days were Gurdjieff, he had a teaching called The Fourth Way, and he wrote many books. He was a Russian, a real character because he was very extreme in what he did. But he wrote a lot of books and really good information. Yes?
Laurence, what does polarity therapy mean?
Polarity therapy is a very gentle type of body work that is similar to what people would think of as acupressure, but more gentle. It's based on Ayurvedic medicine versus acupressure is based in Chinese or Japanese, like
Is that what you were
acupuncture.
doing when you started? Talk about
What I do now is sort of my own thing, and like everything, it's a kind of a funny story, but a lot of what I do is I did this health fair in Manhattan, and I had a booth of polarity with some other people, and next to me was a Traeger booth, which is another type of gentle body work. And I did an exchange with a woman there, and I loved it. And some of the things I incorporated into my work was based on my misunderstanding of what she did. So I basically do rocking and sometimes holding the head and feet. And it's not really body work, but it just helps the energy move. The main thing I'm doing is I'm looking, again, I see all sorts of things. So sometimes I'm working with someone and all of a sudden I'll know information about medical stuff. Sometimes I just see things about past lives. Usually what I'm looking for, there's 3 different consciousnesses. One is the basic self, it's like our gut. One is our heart, which is where we begin our spiritual self. The other one's our head, which is our conscious self. So I'm looking to integrate those, open those up. And there's this energy that comes in, and what it appears at, I think, depends on the person more than on me. But it could be like the light of the Christ. Sometimes it's, one time I had a client, and I said, do you feel what I'm doing? And she said, no. And she had a session with me like once a month for years. I go, why are you doing this thing? She said, I just know it's good for me. And I wanted her to get it. So I started saying, well, what do you believe in? And it ended up she believed in quantum physics. So I talked to her about that, and all of a sudden she goes, whoa, now I'm really feeling the energy. And she got it. So there's, in a certain way, it might be better for my business if I knew everything that was going on, but I don't. I just know that people get it. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Did you ever have an experience, my cousin was bit by a tick and now she can't eat meat or dairy?
Yeah.
Like, you were able to...
It could possibly help. I don't eat any dairy, so I don't know if sometimes those, I don't know about that part of it, but is her energy really low? Is that what it is? Or?
Severe anaphylactic shock.
Yeah.
It's like from certain foods she didn't know had something bad in it.
Well, I mean, some of the shock part I can get rid of. And what happens with anything negative, there are these spiritual forms that are negative. And they're, even if they're not a part of it happening, they come in like vultures. And they're, when those are clear, people just feel better. Almost always. Yes.
What about, like a family, there's a lot of alcoholism. This one person I'm thinking of, his father died when he was like 12 or something, and he said to himself his life was over, or had severe, I guess he's still battling addiction.
Well, I've worked a lot with addiction people, partially because I used to drink a lot, and as I said, my accident was because I did that, and so that's something I'm really good at. But yes, usually when the things clear up spiritually, people get better, unless it's written into their karma that they have to do that, but that's very unusual. What happens is we have a certain karma, like something we have to learn in this lifetime. Basically, we overdo it. And there can be a much gentler lesson or way to learn it. But there's like the spiritual part of us talks to the basic part of us and goes, you have to learn this lesson. The basic part has no discernment about what that is. So it's going 100%, 100%, 2 minutes, and then it's like, well, no, you can learn that lesson and only have 50% of those experiences. So, yes, those kind of things. Yes, okay. So, we're almost done. Okay, he's saying 4 minutes. She said 2 minutes, so we're almost done. You have something else? Or
somebody having addiction to food or what do they call that? House hoarders?
Yeah. Again, yes, most likely. You know, I don't. All that I know is when things clear up in the spirit, people get better. The food thing is a little trickier because, you know, like alcohol, you're either drinking it or not. You can't not eat food. So, but I've worked with a lot of people. The truth is, I normally don't even talk to them about their addiction. Just when things get more lined up between their different levels of consciousness and get the yuck out of their energy field, things just get better.
And the person has to know, like...
No. They don't even have to know. Sometimes a parent will talk to me about their kids. There has to be some level of permission. I can't go against it, but usually there's some level of permission. It doesn't need to be.
No, he's just going to take the pictures.
So I could say, I want to bring my cousin to meet with you, and he doesn't have to give permission to...
Well, if he comes, he's going to give permission, so, but...
He doesn't have to say...
he doesn't have to believe in it, he doesn't have to say he's on board. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So, again, I only have 2 minutes, but if you want to contact... I mean, I have stories where things have happened, so if you have a quick question?
Just a quick question, and it kind of follows on everything that was just really asked. Like, I was thinking how you might push back something. You said some of us get the lessons painfully, unnecessarily. And I was just thinking about it because, like, empaths, so to speak, people who are empathic, are usually picking up other people's energy because they don't want to do their own work on some level.
Yeah, well, if you have karma, though, you can pick it up. If you don't, you won't. So I need to do clearing on myself all the time. So I think we need to end it. No, we have a few more minutes. 2 more minutes, okay.
No, that was really good.
Yeah, when there's an opening, when you have something with someone or something like that, there can be an opening. But so I spend about 2 hours every day meditating, normally doing some journal writing and other stuff, and doing Tai Chi. I mean, and if you're doing this kind of work, that's part of it. One of the wisest people I ever knew said to me, if you're not picking stuff up, you're not doing enough. Because if you're trying to avoid that, you're not really being there for the person. So you don't want to get inundated with it, but if you're so concerned about not picking stuff up, you're not really being there. Yes. I live in Keansburg, New Jersey, but I almost always work with people on the phone. I'm here seeing people in person, but I normally don't. Sometimes I do. But if you're, yes. It works totally fine. I do, yes. They're all in the other room at my, if you want to come get one, and you can, if you put your name and email, I'll send you. Oh, good. Yeah. Anything else? Well done. Okay. Thank you very much.